Hi everyone, welcome back. Good afternoon, and I hope you guys are doing good. We just got a few minutes till it's 2:20, and then we'll get things rolling for today's meeting. Hope you guys are doing well so far, having a good week. Welcome back to class, guys. See some of you guys filing in, so nice to see you here. Got about a couple minutes, and then we'll get things underway. Hi, Remy. Hi, Janae. How's it going, Elizabeth? My day's been good. Pretty busy so far. I've had 3 other class meetings that I've taught, but this is the last one. So yeah, looking forward to getting to the weekend, getting in some nice workouts, and just kind of relaxing. Hi, Philip. Good to see you too. Just another minute. Yeah. How's it going? Is everything going well for you in terms of your classes and first couple of weeks? Hopefully no drama, everything going smooth. Hi, Oliver. Power through. Well, I'm not complaining. This is something that I don't mind. I enjoy teaching, but yeah, at the end of the week, I guess sometimes we all kind of are ready for the weekend. But I'm feeling well. Hi, Anna. Hi, Elizabeth. Nice. That's good to know. Cool. So it's 2:20. Welcome back, everybody. Good to see you guys. With attendance, more people usually show up as the first few minutes of the class start to roll in. But anyway, for those that are already here, thanks so much for already being at the live stream. If you haven't yet had a chance, go ahead and just make sure to say something in the comments so that I have a record of your attendance if I ever need it later. And thanks, Lan. Appreciate that. So yeah, let's just resume from where we were last time. Next week, Thursday, we don't have class. Next week on Thursday, it's what's called Flex Day at Orange Coast College. So you guys don't have classes, but me and the other faculty members are supposed to go to professional development workshops on Zoom and stuff. So we don't teach classes on Flex Day. So next Thursday, we'll have a day off. But the first homework assignment will be due on Thursday of next week nonetheless. So today at the end of class, I'll talk to you guys about that first homework assignment. I'll also send notification through Canvas, so you're going to both hear it from me live in the live stream, and then you'll be able to look at the notification through Canvas that I'll send later. But that's just something to keep your mind on. Our first homework assignment coming forward, and it's due in 1 week. It's just going to be a little workbook exercise, and it's going to have to do with some of the topics that we will discuss today. So I'm going to hold on mentioning it for you guys until we get to the end, because I have to cover some notes before we get there. All right, guys, appreciate all of you for being here and for tapping into the chat. So let me just try and review some material and then take you back to where we were last time, and we'll continue from there. So as we started the class, we just had a broad discussion of what is a good critical thinker. And now we are, I hope, clear that it's the type of person that wouldn't believe a claim unless it was based on some kind of good evidence or a good argument. So critical thinkers of the world are those who say, I need proof, I need good evidence before I'm going to just say I agree with that. If there is such evidence and proof, then fine, and a critical thinker would be willing to believe, but not otherwise. So these are people who are not skeptical, or sorry, who are not gullible. They are skeptical. They're not gullible. They're not easily exploited, manipulated, or deceived. And a good critical thinker also has the ability to defend their own views. When they make claims to others, they make sure that they can back it up with evidence and arguments and rational considerations like those. Bad critical thinkers believe things without any good reason, even if there's no good argument to support it, and they don't have the ability to justify or back their views when they make claims to other people. So we're trying to be better rather than worse at critical thinking. We told you guys that it's so important to be skilled in presenting and evaluating arguments if you're going to be a good critical thinker. So that means that we have to think for just a moment again about what an argument is. Let me ask you guys that. That's a little question. I'll touch base with you on this. What is an argument in the formal sense described by logic? What exactly is an argument overall? I'll give you a little hint. It's a set of things, but it's a set of how many things and what are they and all of that. So let me know. Just checking with you in the chat. Get a little reaction from you. Hey, Joa, good to see you there again. Current question is, what's an argument? Who knows that? Let's see. Well, Philip, you say two premises and a conclusion. Almost. That's not really the right way to say it, though. It's a set of two or more sentences where there's one conclusion and at least one premise. Now, the way you wrote it, it makes it seem as if every argument must have exactly two premises. No. You can have one, you can have two, you can have three. You can have any number that is equal to or greater than 1, but you cannot have 0. So that's the only thing. Every argument then is a set of two or more sentences where one is the conclusion and all the others are premises. So that's good. Let me write just a random argument over here. Jones' blood was found on the murder weapon. Jones' footprint was found at the crime scene. So therefore, let's just say Jones is the killer. This is just a random made-up example, but arguments look like this. So in this case, we have two premises and the conclusion. And Philip, like I was saying, although I commonly use examples where there's more than one premise, it is possible to have a single premise argument. Like the sun has come up for millions of years, so therefore it will come up tomorrow. That's only one premise, but it's minimally sufficient to have one. Anyway, in this case, here's our conclusion. So the conclusion of the argument is the statement that you're trying to show to be true. And the premises are given as reasons or evidence that supports that conclusion. So in this case, these are reasons that someone is giving that this is supposed to be true. Why would one think that Jones is the killer? What reason is there? What evidence is there? And then a couple of reasons / evidence are provided as premises. Now, when you have a logical argument, they're supposed to be written in standard form. okay? So standard form is the way that it looks here visually on this board. The conclusion is always at the bottom. A horizontal line is just above that one conclusion, and then the premises are listed above the line in this order. Notice that the premises have to be on separated lines. They cannot just both occur on the same continuous horizontal line. So that's why, in this case, I've numbered them, and that makes it easy to see that they are separated from one another. Okay, so that's what it is for us to have an argument, and we do this to establish that the conclusion is true. Truth is when what a sentence says matches the facts of reality. So like if I tell you that I'm wearing glasses, that's true. If I tell you that I'm wearing a hat, that's false. And why is it that one of those statements is true and not the other? Well, because of the objective facts. What I'm saying, I can say anything. But if I say something that's actually true, then that means that it mirrors the actual facts. So like if I told you that I was 60 years old, that's not true at all. That's just not how long I have existed. So that would be a false statement. Okay? If I tell you I'm in my 30s, that's a true statement. That's just the decade of age that I am currently in. So anyway, as critical thinkers, we hope to form only true beliefs. I know that we'll never be 100% accurate in our belief formation, but we want to be more accurate rather than less. What's a belief? A belief is when a person thinks that a statement is true, and people can have different beliefs. One person can think that Jones is the killer. Maybe he's a member of the jury, and he's heard the evidence, and he thinks, you know what, in reality, I believe that that is the case. Jones did kill the person. Now, suppose that there's a member of Jones' family, and since they're so attached to Jones, they love him so much, they refuse to believe it. They're like, no way, not my Jones. No way could he have killed somebody. That can't be real. So to the statement that Jones is the killer, they don't believe it. And maybe another person does. So our beliefs are kind of what we choose to think is true, or what we think matches reality. Beliefs, of course, can be different for different people. Two people can disagree on the question of Jones' guilt. But of course, truth is objective. He either did it or didn't do it, regardless of the opinions and views that others may have. Okay, so just giving some review of those concepts. We also talked about conclusion and premise indicator words. Jones could be the victim, sure. It's a hypothetical scenario, though. So I mean, I'm just kind of constructing it out of thin air. But yeah, the question of his guilt is something that two people could disagree about. But at the end of the day, it's not that he both killed the person and also didn't kill the person. I mean, he either is innocent or he's guilty, and it's one fact objectively. Subjectively, we may be at a loss to know which one it is, but it's like there's a fact behind it, which one it is. Okay, good. There's conclusion indicator words. Those are words like therefore, hence, thus, so, consequently. There are premise indicator words, which are words that are in the realm of because, since, given that, due to the fact that. So you would use those premise indicator words before you state a part of the evidence. Like, because his blood was found on the murder weapon, and since his footprint was found at the crime scene, therefore he's the killer. Or so he's the killer, or hence he's the killer, etc. Okay. After that, we all spent some time last meeting talking about the difference between deduction and induction. Okay. So tell me then, if you can, what is a deductively valid argument? This is a core fundamental concept of logic that I want to make sure we all know. So let's try to review that one. Deductively valid argument means what? What has to be the basic features of a deductively valid argument? Someone will let me know. Saying that it is deductively valid means that no, Joa, no. You say the premises are true, not correct. Let's try again. Deductive validity. In some valid arguments, the premises are true. In some other valid arguments, none of the premises are true. Okay, Alex, Lan, whatever. If all of the premises are true, then in that case, the conclusion must also be true. Yes, that's correct. So when you have a deductively valid argument, it means that, Elizabeth, though, you're also saying it the wrong way. We don't say all the premises are true. The word if is the first word. If all of the premises are true, then in that case, the conclusion would have to be true as well. But you can have valid arguments that are not sound, okay? New question. What is a sound argument? So we've got validity. Validity is if all of the premises are true, then the conclusion must be. No worries, yes, just kind of make sure to drill it there while we're all together. But a new question can be asked, and so I'm asking you this. What is soundness? No, Elizabeth, no. You're now referring to inductive strength. So this is off topic for the moment. I'm asking about a deductively sound argument. Okay, Lan, it's a valid argument which has all true premises. Correct. So I'm going to write some arguments up here and test your understanding of these concepts really quick. This says, first premise, all mammals can fly. Dogs are mammals. So what would our conclusion in this case be? If it's a valid argument, what's the logical conclusion? All mammals can fly. All mammals can fly. Dogs are mammals. And so therefore, hence, thus, let me know. Therefore, dogs can fly. Correct. Okay, now, what's the status of this argument in terms of our terminology that we're now discussing? This is what kind of argument overall? Let's see if we know. Correct, Joa, that's right. It's valid but not sound. So Joa, to return to your earlier comment, you say valid argument. The first thing you wrote was premises are true. But here is a valid argument where certainly this is not a true premise. So what does validity mean? It means that if the premises are true, hypothetically, like if they were, then this conclusion would result from them. So when you're evaluating validity, you're not even really concerned about whether any of the statements are facts. You're just looking at the informational content. And this content logically follows from these two pieces of content, disregarding the fact that number one is not true. So it is valid because the conclusion logically follows necessarily from the premises, but it's not sound because in order to be sound, each premise would have to be a real true fact of reality. So this one's valid but not sound. Now if I said all mammals are warm-blooded, dogs are mammals, therefore dogs are warm-blooded. Okay, now the argument is what? A different argument. This is a different argument than the one I just wrote. What's its status? You say the last one was valid but not sound. Here we have an argument that is what? Yes, good, Joe. It's both valid and it is sound. Because in this case, as in the previous case, the conclusion logically results from the given premises. But beyond having a conclusion that is derived from the premises are in fact true. It's true that all mammals are warm-blooded and that dogs are mammals. So therefore dogs are warm-blooded. All mammals can fly. That was really false, huh? Most mammals can't fly. Almost none of them can. I think, isn't it just bats, pretty much? Well, there's flying squirrels, but they kind of just glide, I guess. But anyway, yeah, so just some examples. Here, I'm not going to write it on the board, but I'll just say it to you and you can give me a quick reply if you can. What if I wrote out all birds can fly? And pigeons are birds, so therefore pigeons can fly. What would be the status of that one? All birds can fly. Pigeons are birds. Therefore pigeons can fly. Let me know. What's the status there? Valid, sound, not valid? Okay. I know about the bats. Yeah, we referred to them. But moving on from that, I'm asking you this. All birds can fly. Pigeons are birds, therefore they can fly. Valid but not sound, correct, right? Because we have some flightless birds. There's the ostrich, there's what, the emu, I guess. So the first premise of that argument would be false, but nonetheless, the argument is valid. Stephen, it's valid. It's valid because look, if you say all birds can fly, this is what you're saying. This circle stands for birds. This circle stands for things that can fly. Notice that all birds can fly according to the diagram. Even though this part kind of got a little bit dim. So if we have like pigeons, one of the birds, then of course it falls within the broader circle that subsumes and entirely contains B. Also penguins, good, another example. Okay, so just on a little bit of review, we've now kind of gone past the idea of validity and soundness again. So validity, you just have to look at the conclusion, compare it to the premises, and ask, do these premises establish this conclusion? Like, if they were true, would the conclusion have to be true? When you're asked about whether it's sound or not, that's when you have to actually look at the premises and see, do these match reality or not? So validity can be possible without soundness, but every sound argument is valid, okay? Because it's part of the definition of soundness, that it's valid plus. It's valid plus, it's got these true premises. Okay, so next up, I want to ask you guys about the other type of argumentation and reasoning, induction. So what does it mean to say that an argument is inductively strong? Let me know about that one. Inductively strong, what do you say? So I'll just wait for it for a minute. I'm sure that it's there in your mind, in your notes, in your memories. What's an inductively strong argument? Okay, so Joa, if the premises are true, it is very likely that the conclusion is true. Very good. Stephen, you have part of the right answer, but you have to mention the relationship of the conclusion to the premises. So it has to start with that if the premises are all true part. And then from there, yeah, you would say, then in that case, the conclusion is, well, I don't know, the way you put it is also kind of weird, very possible. Possible doesn't necessarily mean likely. Like, it's possible that I could get hit by a meteor or something tonight, but that's like almost like totally improbable. So you'd say if the premises are true, then the conclusion is likely to be true. And Oliver, also, the way you've put it is not fulsome enough. You say it is likely to be true. What is it? The conclusion is likely to be true if all the premises are. Okay, so good. I like the responses here. Well, let me look at this, 29. You say it has a high probability of being right, usually derived from the volume of evidence. Again, I would prefer not to use the word it because it is a very, very generic label. So it is the conclusion that has a high probability of being correct or true if all of the premises are true. Even saying it that way, though, reverses the order of, like, you're supposed to mention the premises first. So if all the premises are true, then the conclusion is true. Or not is, but is likely to be. Okay, so let me ask you for examples if you can. One example that we talked about last time was the classic case of, the sun has come up for billions of years, therefore it will come up tomorrow. What is perhaps another example that you can come up with on your own? And then let's see what you give me. So anything that you think is an inductively strong argument. So a conclusion that's very, very probable, very likely, based on the evidence that you give in the premises. So you can always spin one of these off by thinking of something that has happened for a long time, and then the conclusion is just that it's going to happen again if that type of event occurs again. So, like, what can you give me on this? Just a little review, and then from here, once we get that out of the way, we'll move on to the new material for today. So what could be an example of an inductively strong argument from you? Just going to hang in there for a minute, but let's see what you can supply. So when you write the argument out, you can just designate what the conclusion is, what the premises are. Okay, Elizabeth, my friend has been alive for 50 years, so she'll be alive tomorrow. That's a good example. It's a little morbid, I guess, because you're talking about how long the person's alive and the presumption that they'll continue to live. But yeah, after 50 years, it seems like they've got a pretty stable record of survival and existence, so you suppose that they'll continue to be alive in the next day. So here we go, next one. California has voted blue in presidential elections consistently for the past decade, so it'll vote blue in the next presidential run. That's a good, interesting case. When's the last time that California went for the Republican? Well, I mean, you say decades, probably that's true, but I think in the 80s, every state voted for Reagan in 1984, except for District of Columbia and like Vermont or something. So that's like the biggest landslide in history. Fair enough, though. California consistently votes blue compared to other states, especially since the 1990s. So yeah, that'd be a fair conclusion to draw from those premises. It's likely. Joa, my shoe size has been the same for 8 years and it will not change for the rest of my life. Ha. Okay, yeah, sure. At the same time, though, I'll tell you this, Joe, about shoes. I was like a nine and a half for so long in my life, and then I took up this really intense running habit, like maybe 5 or 6 years back. Like I'm running all the time now, and it caused my feet to actually grow a little bit. Like, and I'm in my 30s and stuff, so now I can't even wear 9.5. I'm wearing 10.5 shoes now because they swelled up and got bigger. I don't know, that's crazy, but anyway, that would be a case where your inductive conclusion wouldn't necessarily hold. But I get what you mean, right? If your shoe size has been the same for that long, why would it change? Elizabeth, you say this isn't a real person, your friend's, okay, well, no, I'm not. I would not wish ill on your friend if it was a real person. Just saying, it's kind of a funny example. Okay, no, Lan, this is not the right example at all. I gotta tell you, that's wrong. You say Harold's a grandfather, Harold is bald, therefore all grandfathers are bald. Why would that be, how is that conclusion at all reasonable? One person is bald, so all the grandfathers are? I mean, that would not generalize. Maybe if you said, like if you listed a bunch of them, like Harold is a bald grandfather, Jerome is a bald grandfather, William is a bald grandfather, and therefore all grandfathers are bald. But just off of one case, this is not at all good enough to induce your conclusion. But I take the point. Okay, guys, so these are inductive arguments. The format of an inductive argument is like something has been observed to happen so many times in the past, like n times, where n is just some large number, right? And then the conclusion is the same event will occur in the n plus 1th observed instance, so like in the next case. My car has always started every time I've turned the key, and I've owned the car for 5 years. So if I turn the key today, then the car will start. That seems probable, but it can't be guaranteed. So inductive arguments have a conclusion that is very likely to be true given the premises. But unlike deduction, where there's no possible way for the conclusion to be false if the premises are true, induction still leaves that possible chance that the predicted conclusion will be false. Like if I say I'm taller than, okay, if I say that Shaquille O'Neal is taller than me and I'm taller than Kevin Hart, therefore Shaq is taller than Kevin Hart, that conclusion can't be false if the two premises provided are true. But if I told you that my car has never broken down on the freeway and I've been driving for 20 years, so it won't break down today, that's a pretty safe assumption, and it is probable given the reliable track record of the car's performance over the decades. But no one can guarantee with absolute necessity that that conclusion wouldn't have materialized. Yes, the inductive reasoning allows the conclusion to be false, Lan, but it's supposed to be unlikely that it will be false. And so, you know, the evidence that you gave doesn't establish with any high probability that every single grandfather, I mean, there's millions of grandfathers, not billions, okay, but there are millions of people perhaps that are old enough that have had children that are grandfathers. So how can you generalize from one case? I'm not saying that an argument like that couldn't have been inductively strong, but you need more evidence before you can reach that sweeping conclusion that all grandfathers are bald. If you had said every grandfather I've ever met is bald in the like whole lifetime that I've lived, therefore they're all bald, then you would have had a conclusion that's pretty likely based on the premises. But I'm going off of your evidence. You said Harold, one person. You know what I mean? So just, it should be common sense to you that that's not a plausible conclusion, because if some kid walked up to you on the street and said, hey, I met a bald guy, so all people that are that age are bald, you'd be like, come on, you just met one person. So it's intuitively not the most probable conclusion based on the premises. But you're correct in saying that when you have an inductive argument, the conclusion has a possibility to remain false. It's just possible. Okay, so good, guys. We've now done some decent review of the material from last lecture. Now, today's lesson is all about this. We're going to try to understand what are different forms of deductively valid arguments. So we're going to move into a little bit more detailed discussion of what some different types of deductively valid argument are. So we're focused on deduction today, and the lesson is all about 4 different forms of deductively valid argument. Now, what is a form of deductively valid argument? Okay. Once you have the abstract form of a valid argument, then you can create infinitely many examples using that format. Let me give you one example before we list the actual 4 cases that are important for today. Suppose the argument was laid out in this format. All A's are B's. Some individual X is an A. What would you deduce as the conclusion of those 2 premises? Everything that is an A is a B. And something is an A. Not to worry, Tan. Hi, good to see you. What do you guys think is the conclusion of this one? There's a specific conclusion that's the logical result of those premises. So let's see if one can put it in there. Okay, yeah, good, Elizabeth. Wait, no, that's not correct. I'm sorry. Janae, you have it. And so do you, Joa. X is a B. Okay. So, if everything that's an A is a B, and something is a member of the category A, then of course it's a member of B. Like, for example, here, these are all the things that are A. They're a subset of things that are B, like, I don't know, all apples are fruits. So like everything that's an apple is a fruit, but there are some things that are not apples that are also fruits. That's the exterior region within B, but outside of A. Now suppose that this is like, I don't know, just a little green apple, X. If it's an apple and all apples are fruits, then it's also a fruit. If all dogs are mammals and Rover is a dog, then Rover is a mammal, because every dog is a mammal, and he's one of them. So that would be like a form, and if you plug in consistently for A, B, and X, you could generate as many valid arguments based on this as you want. Some of them would be sound, some would not be sound, but they would all be valid. If I tell you that all human beings can fly, and R. Kelly is a human being, so therefore he can fly, that would be valid based on just the logic alone. But of course, in that case, it would not be sound, given the obviously false first premise, which says that every human can fly. Okay, so we want to now learn what are a couple of these different forms of deductively valid argument. And so that's the heading here. 4 forms of deductively valid argument. Okay, so starting with disjunctive syllogism. Okay, now let me explain a little bit about the terminology that you see there. Syllogism means a valid form of argument with at least 2 premises. Okay, so when you have a valid argument form and it contains at least 2 premises, then that's known as a syllogism. Now, the disjunctive syllogism is called disjunctive because it involves a type of sentence that is known in logic and grammar as a disjunction. So let me explain what a disjunction is really fast. Okay, so disjunction is just a fancy sounding word for an either-or sentence. An either-or sentence, that's what a disjunction is. So the form that a disjunction takes is this form, either A or B. Either A or B. That would be a disjunction. For example, if I say to you that I will either stay at home or go for a run, that would be a disjunction, and the 2, what they're called are disjuncts, would be the 2 parts of speech that are on either side of the word or. Hey, Peachy, how's it going? So in every disjunction, there are two component parts that we call disjuncts. There's the first disjunct, which occurs after either, and then there's the second disjunct that occurs after the word or there. So in this example, the first disjunct is A and the second is B. What if I told you that I will either have pizza or tacos for lunch? What would be the first disjunct in that case? You heard the example, right? I will either get pizza or tacos. So what's the first disjunct in that example? Just make sure you're tracking me. Give me a little feedback. Pizza, that I will get pizza, correct. And in that example, the second disjunct is obviously that I will get tacos. Okay, so now that you know what a disjunction is, I'm going to show you what the full disjunctive syllogism looks like. Okay, so this is a form of valid argument that has two premises that lead to the conclusion at the bottom. Okay, so the first premise of disjunctive syllogism is just the disjunction statement, either A or B. From there, the second premise is going to eliminate one of the two disjuncts. So, for example, it can say not A. So now, let's see you deduce the conclusion. Tell me what follows. If we know that either A or B, and we also know that not A, then what conclusion is there left for us? Therefore, what's the conclusion? Either A or B, but not A, and so therefore it's B. That's right. Good job. So, like if I say I'll either get pizza or tacos for lunch, but the pizza place is closed, so therefore I'm getting these tacos. Either Trump or Biden will win the election, but Trump did not win, and therefore it was Biden. I'm either going to the gym or I'm going to go for a run, but the gym is closed because of COVID, so therefore I'll go for a run. These are all just various random examples of disjunctive syllogisms, and notice that they just they follow the format that you see here. The only difference between them is that we're just plugging in different items consistently for A and B. Let me see then, guys, if any of you can hit me with a quick example of your own. You know, just make something up. Start the argument, so with an either or statement. Proceed after that to eliminate one of them, and then conclude with the alternative. So if you can write that in the chat, that'd be awesome. And if it helps you, you could like number the premises, like 1 dot, and then put that, and the 2 dot, and you could put C dot, whatever the conclusion is, so that I can see all in the same piece of text what your full argument would have been. Because I know it's hard to write in standard form, obviously, in this interface. So yeah, let me know. What's an example of such a type of argument as this? Bob likes either men or women. Okay, Kellen. But you're only saying one thing. I mean, you got to write the whole argument. That's the point, right? An argument is never just one sentence. So there's 3 parts. You got one part. You're starting it off. We got to follow it through to the end. So what's the rest? Or anyone else? Whatever else you have. 2, Bob did not like men, and therefore must like women. Sure. That's a decent argument. Of course, as you all know, there's many more sexual preferences even than just those two, the binary. Like some people like both, and some people are on the spectrum and all of that. But yeah, correct. Let's see. Any other cases? That's a good one. Let's see. Continue. Who else can just sort of toss one out there? Just because I want you to work with the concept. You know, I want you to be able to apply it. Okay, I'm going to read a book or watch a movie, but the power's out, so I'll read a book. That's kind of nice, yeah. So you have a set of 2 possible options. One has been ruled out, so it's the other. Jordan, getting a cat or dog, you mean like I'm going to get a cat or dog? Allergic to dogs, and therefore getting a cat. Nice. I've never, it's like always people use this reason that they're allergic to cats as the reason for not wanting to have cats around. I personally don't know if that's 100% scientifically correct. I mean, don't all pets have the same kind of dander and so on? But yeah, fair. Good example. Now, here's something I want to mention as we're learning about this. You can also have it go in the other order. Okay, so it really actually doesn't matter which disjunct it is that is eliminated. We've gone in cases where it is the left side that was negated here. But it's also possible to have this situation, not B. Okay, now tell me what you think would be the conclusion in this example. We have either A or B, but not B, and so, and I'll get to your thing there, 29, in just a minute. But to this question briefly, who knows what this conclusion should be in the logic of the disjunctive syllogism? Either A or B, it's not B, so A, therefore A, correct. All right, and so back to your question or comment, this is from the movie They Lived. I came here to do two things, kick ass and chew bubble gum, and I'm all out of bubble gum. Haha, yeah, okay, there you go. Like, yeah, the chances are slim to none, and Slim just left town, so there's no chance. I've heard that one as well. Very good. But hold on a minute. Let me hold on one thing. Chew bubblegum, all out of bubble. Okay, I got it, yeah. Not B, negation of the bubblegum disjunct. So clearly your conclusion would be gonna kick ass or whatever. Okay, yeah, so know this. Whichever disjunct you eliminate on the second premise, the alternative that's given by the first disjunction is the conclusion. So if you're eliminating B, A is the conclusion. If you're eliminating A on the second premise, then B is the conclusion. And now I guess would be a good time to mention that the disjunctive syllogism has kind of like a separate title, another name that it's sometimes called by. This is like its formal, official name. But sometimes people also kind of refer to it as the argument from elimination. Okay, so let me put that over here in parentheses. Argument from elimination. That's just another synonymous name for this form. And they sometimes call it the argument from elimination because on the second premise line, that's what we are doing. We're eliminating one of the other disjuncts and leaving us with just one remaining alternative. Veggies are fruit, you're on a keto diet, can't eat sugar, therefore veggies. There you go. Good example also, Stephen. Now let me try to ward you off from making an error. I've taught this class so many different times that I've come to see what are some common errors that some students do make when they report on this. So I want to try and help you, avoid that. Just erasing this so I have like clear visual for you guys. This is the most common mistake that is made when people try to present disjunctive syllogism / argument from elimination. Sometimes a person will say this, either A or B, A, and therefore not B. And I gotta tell you, this is incorrect and this is not valid, so don't do that. Why is it wrong? Because in the second premise, neither disjunct has been eliminated. We've affirmed A. But from the affirmation of A, we cannot conclude that B is false. And let me try to explain why in a little more depth. A little difference between the everyday use of the word or in common speech and then the technical use of or in logic. In logic, we use what is called the inclusive or, meaning that when we say A or B for some A or B, it's possible that both are the case. In everyday speech and conversation, we usually use or in the exclusive sense, meaning that if you say A or B, what you intend by that is either A or B, but not both, okay? In logic, though, it's possible that when one claims A or B, that it may be both. So let me explain by an example. Let A and B just be apple and banana. That's easy to remember. Suppose that I told somebody that I'm either going to pack an apple or a banana in my lunch bag today, right? Now, what would make that a false statement? The only thing that makes it false that I would either pack an apple or a banana is if I don't have either thing. Like if you look in my bag and there's a bunch of grapes, then you would say to me, what happened? I thought you said you were going to either pack an apple or a banana. And then I would say, okay, well, I guess that wasn't true. But what if you looked in the bag and there are apple, but no banana? It's still true because I said I would have either apple or a banana. So that would not falsify what I claimed. What if you look in the bag and there's no apple, but there is a banana? In that case, once again, it was a true statement because I claimed in the first place I would either have an apple or a banana packed in the bag. What if you looked in the bag and you see both? You see that there's an apple and there's a banana there. Did I say something false then? Actually, no. According to logic, when I say that I will either pack an apple or a banana, it's perfectly consistent with that I would do both. I did either pack an apple or a banana. I packed both of them. So from the affirming of one of the disjuncts, we cannot conclude that the other one is false. But from the elimination of one of the disjuncts, we can conclude that the other one is true. So it has to precisely be in that given order. The second premise must be a negation of one of the disjuncts, and then the conclusion is the assertion of the alternative. Keep in mind, this is crossed out here, this is wrong. The reason it's wrong is because it affirms a disjunct instead of denying it, and that's not a valid instance of disjunctive syllogism. So can you say again what a syllogism is? Yes. Syllogism is just a fancy sounding word for a valid form of argument with at least two premises. This is a valid, well, let me write the correct version of it again. Two premises you see here, either A or B, not A, therefore B. This is a valid form. When it's called a form, that means that we just have abstract variables in the place of sentential content here. So it's a form, it's a valid form, it's got at least two premises, so it's a syllogism. A syllogism is a valid format of argument using variables with at least two premises. This is the disjunctive member of the syllogism family, okay? Now here's one more thing I would tell you guys. Sometimes with the argument from elimination, you can have like more than two possibilities. Like say that someone says Larry, Curly, or Mo is the killer, but we've used a DNA analysis and we've eliminated Larry and Curly. Then in that case, it's Mo. But disjunctions, for certain technical reasons, have to have two terms instead of three. So you'd actually have to disjoin a disjunction to a singular term if you wanted to say that in logic. So Joa, A and B could be the conclusion in a disjunctive syllogism. Yes. Wait, A and B? No, because in the disjunctive syllogism, we eliminate it down to one possible case. So when you eliminate one of the disjuncts, it's the other alternative that remains as the fact. It's never going to be in a disjunctive syllogism that it says A and B at the bottom, because we're eliminating one of the disjuncts in the course of the argument. What I've said to you about the inclusive or is that from the statement that either A or B, it's logically consistent with that to say that both A and B, okay? But just mentioning that is not talking necessarily about the full disjunctive syllogism, which doesn't just speak about the implication of the two disjuncts and whether affirming one establishes the negation of the other. The disjunctive syllogism proceeds from the statement of the disjunction to the denial of one of the disjuncts, and then leads us to the conclusion, which is the other alternative. Okay? So to simply answer your question, no. The conclusion of a disjunctive syllogism is always going to be one of the disjuncts, not both. But you arrive at that one because you eliminate one of the others. You do not arrive at the negation of one of them by affirming the other. Okay? So affirming one doesn't eliminate the other, but eliminating one does establish that the other one is affirmatively true. Okay? So that's the best thing I can say, I think, to your question. Okay, guys, so disjunctive syllogism, that's just one of the four forms that we're learning today. But there's three more, okay? So we're going to learn those three right now. So the remaining three are all members of, like, you could say, the same family. Thank you, Joa. Yeah, so there are three different types of what are called hypothetical syllogisms. Okay, so hypothetical syllogism is the category, and there are three members of it. So we're now learning about certain hypothetical syllogisms. Now, disjunctive syllogism was called disjunctive syllogism because it involved a disjunction, which is an either-or statement. Hypothetical syllogism is called hypothetical syllogism because it involves a sentence that is called a hypothetical. So now we're going to learn what's a hypothetical. Here's what that is. It's simply an if-then sentence or statement. An if-then sentence, okay? So the form, the appearance of the hypothetical statement is something like this. If A, then B. Okay? That's what a hypothetical looks like. It's just an if-then. And like if I run, then I will sweat. If I If I'm in California, then I'm in the United States. If I don't wear a mask, then I'm going to get sick. So these are all just if-then statements. They're called hypotheticals. Sometimes they're called conditionals also. Just so you know, there's like this synonymous way they're referred to also as conditionals. And the reason they're called hypotheticals or conditionals is because what they're saying is, if this is hypothetically assumed, then this would be the result. Or under the condition of A, under those conditions, then B would be the result. Now, in every hypothetical / conditional, there are two parts, okay? There's two parts to your hypothetical, so let me tell you what they're called. The if clause, the part that's at the beginning, like here, if A, that is known by the name of antecedent. That's the antecedent, A-N-T-E-C-E-D-E-N-T, antecedent, the if part. The other part here, the then clause that follows after the if, that's known as the consequent. C-O-N-S-E-Q-U-E-N-T, consequent. Kind of like the word consequence, but slightly different spelling, okay? So the antecedent is what comes first, or what happens prior, and the consequent is what results from that, like the consequence or whatever of the prior triggering antecedent. Okay, so now that you know what a hypothetical is, it's an if-then sentence, you know what the two parts of it are, the antecedent and the consequent, we're now prepared to talk about the first one of the hypothetical syllogism family. So this is called modus ponens. Modus ponens. And it's a syllogism which has two premises that ultimately lead to this conclusion below. The first premise is just a hypothetical statement. So it says, if A, then B. The second premise afterward then says that A is true, that A is the case. All right, so now a little elementary deduction for you guys. What do you think follows then logically? If we have if A, then B, and we also have the fact that A, what do you say is the conclusion therefore? If A, then B, followed by the assertion of A, therefore, we conclude that what? Let's see. B, correct. Yes, B. And now let me plug in some information so you can see how this might sound in a real case. If I run, then I'll sweat. And then say I do run. Therefore, I sweated. Okay, like basic stuff. If one thing happens, then another thing will be the result from that. So if we suppose that that thing did happen, then we get that result that follows from it. Okay, like if I'm in California, then I'm in the United States. Fair enough? I am in California. So therefore, I'm in the United States. That conclusion just follows from the two premises. The first one says, if one thing, then another. It's followed up and backed by the statement that that did in fact occur, or it is true. So then we have our conclusion, which is the consequent of the conditional. Okay. Modus ponens is its very classic Latin name that it's had for thousands of years, but it's sometimes also called by a less formal title of affirming the antecedent. So like that's in parentheses here, the other name that is sometimes given to it, affirming the antecedent. And it goes by that other name as well as modus ponens because of what happens in the second premise. In the second premise, we affirm the antecedent from the first premise, and the conclusion is then just the consequent of the hypothetical that we had here on line 1. So if I socially distance and wear a mask, then I won't get COVID. I've socially distanced and wear a mask, so I didn't get COVID. If I fall from the Eiffel Tower, no, maybe something taller even. If I fall off the Empire State Building, then I will die. and I fell off the Empire State Building, so therefore I'm dead. I mean, I guess a person couldn't actually give that argument, but you follow me, right? If we have a statement that one thing will cause something else, then under the further postulation that this happened, the consequent happened as well. If I study, then I'll pass my classes. I studied, therefore I passed. If I got the job, then I applied for the job. I did get the job, therefore I must have applied. If I'm a professor, then I graduated high school. I am a professor, and therefore I did graduate high school. So hopefully none of these is that tricky or hard to master. Let me hear then one example from anybody here who can just spin off a quick random example of modus ponens. Let's see something in the chat. Just take a moment, collect your thoughts, and then just hit me with one clear example. Okay, Remy. If I eat my veggies, then my mom said I could have dessert. I ate my veggies, therefore I will get dessert. Okay, good. I guess your hypothetical is, suppose I eat the veggies, then in that case, your mom allows you to get this dessert. You ate them, so you can get dessert. Good example. Okay, Lan. If I'm a female, then I have 2 X chromosomes. I am a female, and therefore I have 2 X chromosomes. That's a good example, very clear, and it's based on the biology of the gender, so that makes sense, or at least biological sex. Jordan, if I'm on a boat, then that means I'm out at sea. Okay, and I mean you'll continue from there, right? Got 2 more steps to finish that, but I mean I think you know where that would go from the first premise. Let me get Philip. You say, if I buy a game, then I'll have no money. I bought a game, so I have no money. Okay, that's another good example there, Philip. So Jordan, to complete your example, if I'm on a boat, then that means I'm out at sea. You'd have to say I'm on a boat, and therefore I'm at sea. Elizabeth, if I go to work, I make money. I go to work, and therefore I do make money. All reasonably good examples. Yeah, so I like the cases. I feel like you guys are getting it. Let me say one thing, though, about this that I don't want you to be confused by. Because when I've taught this class so many times that I've noticed a couple of common errors that sometimes get made in student work. And here's one of the common errors, so try not to make this mistake. With modus ponens, sometimes a person forgets what the order is. They'll start with if A then B, but then they'll kind of like lose their train of thought as to what happens next. And so sometimes a person will write this, B, so therefore A. That's wrong. That's incorrect. That's invalid. And that's not modus ponens, okay? Because think about it. Like, suppose someone says, if I'm in California, then I'm in the United States. And I am in the United States, so therefore I'm in California. That doesn't logically follow because given that you're in California, since it's a part of the U.S., then yeah, you would be in the U.S. But just saying that you're in the U.S. doesn't force you to be in California. You could be in any of the other 49 states. So even if these 2 things are true, this conclusion doesn't follow from them. So that's not valid. Or here's another case. Suppose that I told you that if I run, then I'll sweat. And then I go on and say I'm sweating, therefore I ran. Well, running would lead to the sweat. But sweating is not only achievable through running. So from the fact that I'm sweating, we can't safely conclude that I ran. It could be that I was helping somebody move, or I got really nervous, or I was lifting weights or something. So running, for sure, if that had been the assertion here, would have implied the sweat, which follows from running. But knowing that I just had sweat doesn't necessarily logically necessitate that it was due to the running activity. Okay, so that's invalid. You just have to remember that with modus ponens, it's the left side that is affirmed. It's the antecedent that is affirmed in the second premise position. It's never the consequent, or if it was, that would be invalid. Okay. So like if I'm a college professor, then I graduated high school. I graduated high school, therefore I'm a college professor. That doesn't follow because you can graduate high school and not continue with your education. But if you're a professor, then certainly you must have gotten a high school degree. But it doesn't follow the other way around. It's not like if I have a high school degree, then I must be a professor. But in the other direction, the conditional does correctly describe the facts. Okay, modus ponens, everybody. So hopefully that's coming through and making some clear sense. But we got 2 more. So So far we've learned about the disjunctive syllogism. That's the either-or syllogism. We've learned about one of the three hypothetical syllogisms, modus ponens, but now we're going to learn about another hypothetical syllogism, call it like maybe the sibling of modus ponens, and this is called modus tollens. Okay, now modus tollens is another, member of this whole hypothetical syllogism family. And just seeing if I have maybe like another marker. I don't know if these are better. I think I was better off with the first one. One more try. Maybe. Let me see. Okay, modus tollens. So we've got two premises that lead to the conclusion at the bottom. The first premise of modus tollens says this: if A, then B. It's just a hypothetical. Now, the second premise of this hypothetical syllogism is different from modus ponens. Instead of affirming the antecedent, we deny the consequent. And so what it says is not B. So let's see if you can deduce the conclusion that should be written at the bottom. Suppose we've been told that if A, then in that case B, but not B. So what is the logical deduction here? If A, then it would have been B, but not B. Not B. B didn't happen. So therefore what? Wait for it. Let me hear you in the chat, and you'll let me know what's the proper conclusion here. Correct. Not A. Not A. So it's not A by itself, Elizabeth and Remy, or Swirly. It's not A, okay? So like, let's be very precise and clear about that. If I run, then I'll sweat. I'm not sweating. So that doesn't mean that I am running. I mean, if I'm not sweating, then I didn't run, because had I been running, I would have sweated. So since this consequence didn't occur, Ryan, you following me? You have to write the word not first, because the conclusion is not merely the statement A. If I run and I'll sweat, I'm not sweating. And from those two facts, clearly it is implied that I didn't run. The antecedent leads to the consequent. If the consequent did not occur, then anything that led to it didn't occur either. Okay, like, so if I had fallen off the Empire State Building, I would be dead right now. And you guys can see I'm not dead. So obviously one thing that did not happen to me was falling off the Empire State Building, because had it done so, I would not be alive. I am alive, so that must not have happened, right? So in any case where the one thing is the antecedent of something else, from the fact that this consequence has not materialized, we know that its cause did not happen either. Okay, so like here, another geographic example. If I'm in California, then I'm in the United States. Fair enough? Suppose that I continue by saying I'm not in the US. Well, obviously then I'm not in California either. So like, if you had thought that A was the correct conclusion, then that would not make sense. It'd be like saying, if I'm in California, then I'm not in the United States. Sorry, if I'm in California, then I'm in the United States. I'm not in the US, so I am in California? No. If you're not in the whole country, then you're not in a part of the country either. What is confusing, Ryan? Let's ask what you mean. This is modus tollens. Follow me. If I'm in California, then I'm in the United States. That's a true statement. If I add to that I'm not in the whole United States, then don't you see that I cannot be in California? What you wrote was this. And that would mean that not being in the US means that I am in one of the states. That's not possible, okay? So not A. If I had run, then I'd be sweating. I'm not sweating right now. So I didn't run. If I did run, there would be sweat on me, but I'm not sweating, so that thing that would have caused it didn't happen, okay? If I, let's see, fell into a wood chipper, then I would be dead. I'm not dead. So I did not fall into this wood chipper thing, right? So anything that would have caused my death hasn't happened yet, okay? So if we know I'm not dead, then the things that certainly would have caused it cannot be true. I'm trying to give you examples that are brutal, vivid, so that you kind of really get the sense of what I'm talking about. That's why I'm going with kind of extreme examples in some of these, but hopefully that makes sense to you. Like, if one thing had occurred, then something would have resulted from it. And if the result never happened, then the events that would have triggered it didn't happen either, okay? And in the geographic example, That's when I think you gave me the comment that you're confused. But just, I mean, it makes sense. Like, if I'm in the United States, sorry, if I'm in California, then I'm in the U.S. Because California is a part of the U.S. All parts of California are parts of the U.S., but not the other way around. So if you know that I'm not in the whole U.S., then you know that I'm not in California either. Anyway, so that's modus tollens. Now, modus tollens also has like a secondary name that sometimes people refer to it by. And in this case, the second name is denying the consequent. Denying the consequent, and it's called that because of the second premise, where we do deny the consequent of the first premise conditional. Yeah, no, not to worry, Ryan, but I like to make sure that things are clear, because in the second premise, we deny this consequent, which then leads to the denial of the antecedent. Now, there's one common mistake that people make when they report on modus tollens, but maybe before I tell you about it, let's get an example from the class, or a couple of them if you want. Let me have some kind of modus tollens argument there in the chat. Let's see what you can write. And when we finish modus tollens, we just have one more, and then we're good for today, and I'll tell you what the homework will be. But yeah, let's see an example. If I study, while you're thinking of those, I'll just spin off a bunch of other examples. If I studied, then I would pass the class. I didn't pass, so I didn't study. If I'm happy, then I'm smiling. I'm not smiling, so I'm not happy. What else? Give me something. Okay, so I'll give you another example just while you're thinking. Okay, Lan, I see you wrote something here. What does it say? It says, if I do my homework, then I'll get a grade, like A grade, any grade. Okay. If I do my homework, I'll get a grade. I didn't get a grade, and so I didn't do my homework. That's a correct example too. Janae, if I take medicine, my sore throat will go away. Now, actually though, Janae, what you wrote is wrong, because look at the second part of what you wrote. You're saying I didn't take the medicine, but that's not denying the right part. You have to deny the consequent of the conditional. So what it should say is that if I take medicine, my sore throat will go away. Then it should say what next? The sore throat didn't go away, and therefore I didn't take the medicine. You have it reversed. So make sure to correct that. Kellen, if I go through a nether portal, I would be in the nether. I'm not in the nether, and so I didn't go through that portal. Correct, good example, a bit obscure, but it makes sense. Philip, if I can buy food, I have money. I don't have money, so I can't buy food. That's fine, yes. If people watch my video, it will get views. It didn't get views, and so people didn't watch it. That's fine. If I can use computer, then I must go to school. If I use computer, then I must go to school. I never go to school, so I can't use a computer. Okay, that makes sense too. If you're happy, you won't hurt yourself, but you hurt yourself, that means you're not happy. Okay, I like all of your guys' examples. Very good. Before I move on, though, too quickly, I want to ask one more quick thing. Oh, Jordan, if I eat a lot of food, I'll be full. Not full. Therefore, you didn't eat a lot of food. And that's perfect. And this is all, I hope, making elementary good logical sense to you. These statements and arguments that you guys are providing, with only a few exceptions, show a conclusion that definitively does follow from the premise statements. One more thing, though, before I move on to the next and the last one. I want to make sure we're all on the same page with one more little quick question. What if I had this, and it's modus tollens? And it starts off with saying, if I'm happy, then in that case, I won't yell. Okay. Now, if this is modus tollens, then what should the second premise say right now? Okay, so let's see another interesting example. I can only make you an omelet if the chickens lay enough eggs. So, but you know what? What it should say is, if the chickens lay enough eggs, then I can make you an omelet. And then you would say, I can't make you an omelet, therefore the chickens didn't lay eggs. You kind of got the order reversed a little, because you started with the consequent. I can make you an omelet if. And when you say it that way, the second part of your statement is actually the antecedent. Like if I say to you, I could buy a car if I win the lottery. Well, the word if occurs in the middle of the sentence, and therefore it's actually the antecedent. Like if I win the lottery, then I can buy the car, not the other way around. If I buy a car, then I win the lottery, right? So keep in mind where the word if occurs. The stuff to the right of your word if is your antecedent there, so your example's a little off. But anyway, here, I yelled. I'm yelling. So therefore what? One more question, conclusion. You got the second premise, very good. Therefore, I'm not happy. Now, I wanted to mention this example just for a specific reason. Notice that in the original conditional statement, it says, if I'm happy, then I will not yell. Okay, and what is the denial of not yelling? What's the reverse of not yelling? To yell. So this second statement is denying the consequent, but it's a double negation. And so double negation is equivalent to the affirmative way of saying the same statement. Like right now, are you not watching a lecture? I said that on purpose, the double not. Tell me, is it true or false that right now you are not watching a lecture? Just a separate question. We'll come back to this. So, are you not watching a lecture? Yes, correct, because that's denying that you're not watching a lecture, right? So like, take the statement, I'm not watching a lecture. You're like, nope, that's not true. It is not true that I'm not watching a lecture. In other words, you are. Double negations are a weird part of speech and logic and language, but they do exist. Like, have you heard a person say, you're not wrong? That's kind of like a pop culture thing. You're not wrong. Well, that means that you are correct. So in this case, I won't yell is denied by saying, I'm not yelling, which is the same as saying affirmatively that I am. Okay? So just know that like on homework and some modus tollens questions you might receive, you got to be alert and aware of the possibility of double negation so that you correctly state the form of the argument. Let me give you another possible example, and then we will really be done with this modus tollens stuff. How about this? If I'm not happy, then I will cry. Okay, now if this is modus tollens, what should be the next premise? If I'm not happy, then I will cry. So the second premise should say what then? That I'm not crying. Good, Al or Lan. And then what would the conclusion be in this example? That's right, Ryan, yes. To say it not is to say that it is. Like, therefore I am happy. Okay, good. Now in this example, A, the antecedent of the conditional, is not being happy. And the consequent of the conditional is that I do cry. So when you deny the consequent, we reverse this and have the statement that I'm not crying, which leads to the negation of the antecedent, and that's saying I'm not happy. In other words, that I am happy. Okay? So like, I mean, my name is Dr. Vulich, and my name is not Dr. Vulich. Okay? Like saying that it's not my name is not true. So double negation. Yes, Jordan, we have to learn and think in all of these concepts. So it's just something you got to know. But it's not that bad. It's not that bad, really. Just follow the logic. The form will take you through each example. Sometimes the little complication or added piece of complexity is that you just have to attend to whether the word not or will not or something appears in the premise number 1 or 2. And that'll help guide you through how to conclude and complete the remainder of the argument. Okay, guys, so good. Then I think we're all right with modus tollens. Yeah, and then keep in mind, like, you can't deny the wrong part either. This is incorrect. Just let me show you an incorrect version of modus tollens. If A, then B, not A, therefore not B. This is not valid, and so make sure not to do this. This is denying the wrong part of the conditional. This is denying the antecedent, but modus tollens is denying the consequent. So if you wrote this, you'd be switching the order of the premise and conclusion here at the bottom, and that's wrong. Like if I say to you that if I'm in California, that I'm in the United States, and then I add to that I'm not in California, it does not follow that I'm not in the United States, because I could be in the other 49 states. But from the fact that I'm not in the whole US, then of course I'm not in a sub part of it either. So this is an incorrect way of writing out modus tollens. So just know that you don't want to do that. Okay, so then one more hypothetical syllogism. I say that there's 3 members of this little clan or whatever. There's modus ponens, modus tollens, and then now the last one, which is called the chain argument. Chain argument, okay? So with the chain argument, it's a little different. There's every statement in it is a hypothetical. From top to bottom, they're all if-then sentences. So they go like this. The first one says if A, then B. After that, it's kind of like, think of a chain reaction or whatever. The next premise says that if B, then in that case, C. If B, then C. So what if-then statement do you think would be the conclusion from these 2 premises? So that's a kind of a hint. The conclusion is another if-then. It's another conditional. But what should it say in this if-then relative to these A, B's, and C's above? No, not that A is C. I already said, Jordan, it's an if-then statement. If-then. So start with the word if. What should this say down here? Stephen, again, it can't just be the letter A. If-then. So you got it, Lan. If A, then C. Right, I was trying to explain that with a hypothetical syllogism, every statement is a full hypothetical. It's not just A, C, or anything else. Everything's a full if-then with an antecedent and a consequent. But now look at that argument, right? What it's telling you is that if this were to occur, then this would result from that, okay? And then if that were to occur, then in turn, some further consequence would result from it. So in the end, therefore, if the first antecedent is true, or it happens, then ultimately, through this intermediate sequence of events, the final consequent would happen as well. So the rule of chain argument is that the conclusion is an if-then which connects the first antecedent on the first premise with the final consequent on your last premise. So like, if I run, then I'll sweat. And if I sweat, then I'll take a shower. So if I run, then I'll take a shower, okay? If I don't wear a mask, then I'll get COVID. If I get COVID, then I'll miss work. So if I don't wear a mask, then I'll miss work. Another example. If I study, then I'll pass the class. If I pass the class, then I'll transfer. So if I study, then I'll transfer. And these are all just different chain arguments. Think of almost literally like a chain reaction. It's kind of like dominoes being toppled over. Suppose that domino A falling will cause B to fall. If B falls, then it will also cause C to fall. So therefore, if we initiate this process by toppling A, then C will fall down the line, okay? So now that you've heard this example or this definition, let me see anyone in the chat try to hit me with a quick chain argument. A chain argument. So let's see what you can come up with. It's going to be, you know, a few sentences and a conclusion, and you just have to follow the format that you see there. So just got to plug in values for A, B, and C and do it in the way shown by the form. So let's see what you'll come up with. Okay, so Philip, slippery slope argument. It depends on the case. It depends on the context. Slippery slope is a fallacy that happens when a person assumes without good evidence that one thing would lead to another. But this is merely formal. A and B and C are just letters. So you can't call it a slippery slope unless you had further detail about a particular example. Like if I say to you that if we allow gays to serve in the military, that's a slippery slope to us having no effective fighting forces. Like that's a bad argument. That's a slippery slope argument. But that's one particular case. Not every case of this argument type is fallacious. So Elizabeth, you're saying if I eat dairy, my stomach will hurt. That's A and B. If my stomach hurts, then I'll have to go to the restroom. But Elizabeth, no, here's the problem. Your conclusion is wrong because it's not stated as an if-then. That's also, I would tell you guys, while we're on the topic, the most common error. So I'm glad that we can clarify that right away. The conclusion has to be stated as a hypothetical. It has to say if-then. We're not actually saying that you're doing the things. We're talking about what would happen if hypothetically that was to occur. So like right now I'm telling you this. If I run, then I will sweat. And if I sweat, then I'll have to take a shower. I'm not running right now though. It's not like the conclusion is I ran and so I'm gonna take a shower. It's if that were to happen, then this would be the consequence of having that happen. Okay, so we would rephrase your conclusion and say if I ate dairy, then I'll have to go to the restroom. That's all. Now Joa, if I have a nose, then I smell the dog. Already, this is strange, but it's okay. If I smell the dog, then the dog needs a bath. So if I have a nose, then the dog needs a bath. It's kind of a weird example, though. But I mean, having a nose doesn't necessarily even imply that you'll be in the presence of the dog, right? So, but the way you stated it, just formally, yes, it fits the format. But it's just a bit of an odd sentence to write out. If I have a nose, then I'll smell the dog. I mean, if you have a nose that's not stuffed up or you don't have COVID or something, when people lose their sense of smell, then I guess you would smell the dog. But I think what you really wanted to say, Joa, is that if the dog is smelly, then then I can smell the dog, and if I can smell the dog, then it needs a bath or something. But whatever. Okay, Ryan. If I don't eat, then I get sick. If I get sick, I have to see the doctor. So if I don't eat, I'll have to see the doctor. That's fair. Lan. If I stay up late, I'll oversleep. If I oversleep, I'll miss my class. So therefore, if I stay up late, I'll miss my class. Right. If I take this drink, then I'll be hungover. And if I'm hungover, then I won't make my morning class. So if I take this drink, then I won't make my morning class. If a creeper blows up, there will be collateral damage. If there's collateral damage, then the environment is ruined. So if a creeper blows up, then the environment is ruined, right? Okay, good. Anna, if I study, I'll graduate. If I graduate, I'll have a job. So in conclusion, if I study, I'll have a job. Good. And Elizabeth, this is your new example, just to correct it. If I eat dairy, then my stomach will hurt. If my stomach hurts, then I will have to go to the restroom. So therefore, if I eat dairy, I will have to go to the restroom. Correct, yes. Okay, good. Yeah, and all of the other examples suggested here are good and well. Okay, now one last thing about this. The chain argument, one unique thing about it is that it allows for us to have more than two premises, at least in some cases. The one that I gave you at first is just two, but in some cases there could be three or even more. Suppose that we have a chain argument which continues a third premise, which says if C, sorry, I'm going to get that right there. Okay, if C, then D. If these are three premises of a chain argument, then in that case, what's the conclusion, everybody? Still an if-then, but what will this if-then statement be at the bottom? When we have A leading to B, B leading to C, C leading on to D, then we can say that what? If what, then what? If A, then D. Very good, Kellen, yeah. Okay, so like if I run, then I'll sweat. If I sweat, then I'll need a shower. If I shower, then I'll need a towel. So if I run, then I'll need a towel. I don't know, just random. If I study, then I'll pass the final. If I pass the final, then I will pass the class. If I pass the class, I can transfer. If I study, I can transfer. If I don't wear a mask, I'll get COVID. If I get COVID, I'll get sick. If I get sick, I'll have to miss work. So if I don't wear a mask, I'll have to miss work. Just on and on. So with modus ponens and modus tollens, there's only two premises, and then the conclusion. With chain argument, we allow for, at a minimum, two premises, but there can be more than two. Okay. Now, they're all three, the chain, modus ponens, modus tollens, they're all hypothetical syllogisms because the common kind of family resemblance they have is that they all involve if-then hypotheticals. All right. So now I guess I can tell you a little bit about the homework assignment that's going to be due in 1 week. So here I'll just tell you on the board. and I'll back this up with a Canvas announcement with the same information later today. But here's what it is while we're all together. So homework number 1, due Thursday, February the 18th. So that's a week from today. I'd like it if you could just email it to me before our class time would be great. So before any time prior to 2:20 p.m. on Thursday the 18th. My email address is in the syllabus, but just to remind you again, rvulich@occ.cccd.edu. Okay, so just email me when you're done your completed assignment. Here's what it is. It's exercise 8-3. It's on page 252. That exercise has 2 parts. I'm only asking you to do part 1. And part 1 has 10 problems that are lettered A through J. So A through J. Okay, now here's what those problems involve. You've got 10 different arguments written down in the book on that page in that exercise. The thing is, they are not written in standard form, and 1 sentence is missing. Each of the 10 examples is one of the 3 different types of hypothetical syllogisms. So in every case, it's either modus ponens, modus tollens, or the chain argument. And here's your job. You have to reconstruct the whole argument and write it in standard form, including the missing sentence that the textbook doesn't provide. And indicate by means of a highlighter or an asterisk or circling it or whatever, what sentences that you had to add to complete the argument. In most all of the 10 cases, it is the conclusion that's missing. But in at least 1 case, it's one of the premises that is not given by the textbook. So for that reason, you do have to write the full argument out and place the missing sentence in the argument where it should appear, whether it's the conclusion or one of the premises. Now, you've seen that, and you can check the video again to get that again and also send it on Canvas. But I want to clear the board so that I can just show you, like, for example, how one of the problems would be conducted. Now, this is not one of the problems, but the problems are like this in the book. So suppose that it said, okay, now suppose that this was one of the problems. In the textbook, it's just written like that. It's not put in standard form. It's 2 of the parts of the argument, but one of them's missing. So in this example, we would take the argument and represent it in standard form. The first premise is this conditional here. If I train hard, then in that case, I can run a 5-minute mile. So the other statement given in this example says, but I can't run a 5-minute mile. So what would be the missing conclusion? Can anybody tell me? What ought to be the missing conclusion of this argument? Because that's how the homework problems look. They're like, they give you 2 of the 3 parts, and then they ask you finish it and write it out. So, okay, I did not train hard. Correct. I didn't train hard. Okay, now, if that was your problem in the workbook, you would note that this was the missing statement that you had to add by an asterisk, a highlight, or some other means. And then you would also have to say what kind of argument it is overall. And this kind of argument is known as what? You have 3 options: modus ponens, modus tollens. So in a way, I hope it's not too difficult. What is this? It's called what? You have to kind of now apply the forms that we've learned to the current example. So this is known as which of the 3 kinds? Once we get that, then I think we're good for today. But yeah, just let me know. It's this argument is called what? Denying the consequent, yes. Formally speaking, it's best to say the full name, modus tollens, right, modus tollens. This is the form of modus tollens. It's not affirming the antecedent. It's certainly not a chain argument because there's no if-then in the second two statements. It's modus tollens. So that would be like, for example, a perfect response for one of the questions. So there's 10 questions. They're each worth 10 points, so you can get a maximum of 100 points for the first homework assignment. And where I could make deductions are on a few areas. If you didn't write the whole argument out, like if you just wrote the one missing sentence and said modus tollens, that would be a deduction. If you didn't say the right type of argument type, like if you said modus ponens here, that would of course be a deduction. If you don't present it in standard form, where the premises are listed and the conclusion falls at the bottom, that could be a deduction. But it should be not too hard to capture the argument in standard form based on the examples in the text, say what kind it is, and provide the missing sentence. So that's about it for today, guys. I don't want to hold you any longer. I know we've come full time, but I'll send you the directions again so that you have an electronic record of this, and we'll be back together on Tuesday after the weekend. So I guess for now, if everyone's good to go, have a great day. Enjoy your weekend. If you need anything, you can always email me anytime, and I'll be trying to check those messages as often as I can. So thanks a lot, guys. Let me know if you're all good. Say, okay, great, perfect, thanks. So take care again, and until next time, I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.